Oh, hey, Matt.
Broadcasting from their world headquarters in Texas, it's the Arcade Repair Tips Live Show, the show that discusses arcade repair, restoration, news, and more. Now, here are your hosts, Tim and Jonathan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 3, Tim, I believe, of the Arcade Repair Tips Live Show.
Or is it like 2.75?
No, we're not doing that anymore. I only did that because last week you weren't here.
Right, okay.
But before we get into that, let me introduce us, of course. My name is Jonathan Leung. I'm the producer, director, and editor of the Arcade Repair Tips video series. And joining me today, most of the time he joins me, is Mr. Arcade Repair Tips himself, Tim Pearson. The reason I say that is because you kind of left me last time. But I understand. Had some family things to deal with. So obviously I'm not mad. I'm not holding any grudges. But how are you doing other than that?
I'm good.
Good. Okay. Well, guys, we're here today. We're going to do the live show. This is a actual episode 3, Tim. Last time what I did was kind of an episode 2.5. Because you weren't here,
right,
and because the episode 2 stream was so bad. So we've taken great precautions, hopefully, to ensure that we don't have any streaming issues. If we do, we are recording it as a backup. So you guys will be able to see this in its entirety, regardless of if it's live, Tim, or if we have to upload it later. So that's a good thing. Hopefully we got all that ironed out now, and we're going to continue to go in. So, okay, Tim, well, before we get started, how's it going?
Going.
Good. Good.
Everything's good.
Yeah, how are things at Chuckie Cheese, obviously?
Well, you know, this time of year, we get a lot of school groups in and stuff, so a lot of school groups equal a lot of kids playing games and a lot of stuff breaking. But it seems like we've had some unusual repairs, big repairs, but everything is working as of when I left, so we're good.
Well, that's good to know, Tim. Of course, we all know it's May, which means we're at the end of school, obviously, right. And so things are busy at Chuck E. Cheese and a lot of the arcades out there as you're having school groups filter through and things like that. So obviously a busy time in the arcade industry, Tim, I think is what we would say.
Yeah, it's a good time, though, to I do a little bit of, we talked about it last time, doing some more cosmetic work and things, so we're doing a lot of new, switching to LED lights, stuff like that.
Absolutely. So, well, it's good to hear that, Tim. Now, we should remind the audience that we do have a live chat room, and if you guys are here with us, feel free to join us in the live chat. We'll be happy to chat with you in there and answer some of your questions here on the show. Of course, we have a full lineup of questions, Tim, from previous comments of other shows, as well as questions that we've received on the YouTube page, as well as our email. So, we can go through those, but if you guys have some, you're more than welcome to send them to us in the live chat. Tim has the keyboard. And so he'll be either replying to those there, or, you're going to show everybody? Yeah, here we go. They got the keyboard. He'll either be replying to those via, the old-fashioned way here with the typing, or we'll reply to them on the show. So, Tim, like I said last time, episode 2.5, I kind of did without you because you had a family emergency, which is fine. And I basically just covered the stuff that we had in episode 2, plus a couple of extra things for those people who may have been able to see a lot of that second episode that we did. And so, guys, we're still trying to get kind of our feet underneath us as far as live streaming is concerned. We're hoping that this is going to be the best episode yet, Tim, that hopefully all the streaming issues are behind us at this point. So, right. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started with some of the comments that we got on episode 2 and episode 2.5, Tim. Okay, so we've got a couple here, and we're going to go through them for you guys. And the first one that we have here is, it looks like from Jason, Tim. And Jason says, please help me. My Area 51 is playing blind. I'm sure it needs a flyback. What monitor can I use instead that would work with the light guns for my Area 51? Also, I built a MAME cabinet. How do I play light gun games? Thanks. Okay, Tim, so we'll start off with Jason here. He's got an Area 51 that's playing blind. What monitor can he use that would work with the light guns?
Well, any tube monitor is going to work pretty good.
But that's kind of the thing, right? It has to be a tube monitor.
Right, and Area 51 was sold as a kit, so we don't know what size game his is in. Most of them are 25s. which you can still buy.
Correct.
So if it's a 25, 27 inch, he's in pretty good shape
So-
because he could buy like a multi-sync monitor or something that would work in there.
So does Suzo Hap still sell those?
Yes,
Okay.
App sells them. Still several people around that you can get those from. The problem is if it's a 19 inch or something, then you're going to have a little harder time. But if he's sure it's the flyback, then like we always say, why not fix the one that you have?
Exactly.
Because it's a lot cheaper to do it anyway that way. So by all means, he doesn't say what kind of monitor he has, but we would always try to fix that. Now, if he just doesn't want to, or a lot of people, we are starting to get that questions, I want to upgrade to an LCD.
Sure.
And so, Jonathan, if he wants to put an LCD in it, does he have any options for MAME as far as light guns go?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, if he wanted, I think these are two separate questions.
Right.
First, he's got the Area 51 that's got the monitor. If you're going to use the Area 51, you're going to have to use a CRT monitor, okay? Now, he says in his second part here, and I'll bring it back up for the audience here, I built a MAME cabinet. How do I play the light gun games? Well, Tim, you don't necessarily need a light gun to play the light gun games. I do agree it's probably the best way to play them is with a light gun, but you can actually play them with a mouse even and the button, which is kind of tricky because you have to kind of scroll the mouse to where it is. It puts a little reticle icon on the screen, and wherever it is, you click the button and it shoots it. Okay, so you can play the light gun games like that in MAME. Obviously, it's not the best way to do it. The best way would be to get the aim track guns, which are available from I think arcadeguns.com, ultimark.com. But that's the best way, but it's also pretty expensive. And we talked about that on episode 2.5, so I'm not going to go over it too much here. So Jason can go back, watch episode 2.5. Got a lot of detail on the aim track gun. But that's what you'll have to have if you want to have an authentic light gun experience with MAME. You'll need something like that. Gotcha. So to summarize here, Jason, in order to get your Area 51 working, you'll need a new tube monitor of some sort, which are still available from Suzo Hap and other places. And to play the light gun games in MAME, yes, you can play them with a mouse, but it's better to go with the aim track type guns. Yes. Because, I mean, that will give you an authentic experience. That's really what you're looking for. So, Jason, hopefully answers your question. And good luck getting your Area 51 working and your MAME cabinet as well with the light gun games. Now, Tim, we have a couple of questions over here in the live chat. Do we take questions via Twitter? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you want to send them in that way, we do take them that way. The aim track guns for MAME, somebody says, yes, that's what we're recommending here is aim track, which I think, like I said, Ultimark sells them for sure. I believe arcadeguns.com is the other website that has them, something like that. But if you look up aim track in your internet search engine, Tim, you'll find the guns that we're looking for, and they're really good stuff. So, okay, Tim, we have another one on the same screen here, and it's from Greg. Greg says, I have a 1983 Star Wars arcade. It's functioning, but would like to convert the vector monitor to an LCD since parts are getting harder to find. Do you have any tips on parts or suggestions for a converter? Thank you, Greg. Now, Tim, this seems very sacrilegious in a way, trying to convert a vector arcade game to an LCD.
Right.
So what do you think about that?
Well, the most purist guys are going to say no and don't do it, but if you don't have the parts or there's no other option, I would always recommend you repair what you have. Mm-hmm. There's still some people out there that repair those. We have some on a resources page. But if you're going to, the only thing that we have found, you want to bring this up on the screen,
Yeah,
John?
I'll show them real quick. Here we go. Just so
and we're not even, and we haven't done this in a long time or looked at one. This company right here was advertising a converter.
Yeah, Imaging Systems Technology.
Yes.
And the name of the converter is the Vector VGA. I don't know if they still make these. Okay, that's something that should be mentioned. But this one in particular, it says it's only labeled for certain vector games. It does not say Star Wars in particular, I noticed. Okay. So you may have to contact them. There's a lot of information on the UK Video Arcade Collectors Forum, and I have a URL here, guys, that you guys can look at. This one right here. There's a lot of information here at this URL that you guys can find. If you do a search, you'll find the same thing. But that post discusses the install process, gives a short review of the device. But here's the thing, like I said down here with the little star, may no longer be manufactured.
It seems like they did a run and then they were out, but then they were talking about maybe doing some more. So we honestly don't know as of right now.
Right, and the best thing to do, I think, Tim, would be to go to their website at vectorvga.com and contact them directly to see exactly, where you need to go to get it. So vectorvga.com is where you can get the converter. But Tim, I don't know of another vector converter on the market.
No, and that's one reason why we do the show, because there's a lot of stuff popping up, John. We don't know everything. So
right.
Maybe somebody knows, and either you're watching right now, you can go to the chat room and tell us, or you watch the show later through the recording of it.
Right.
Make sure and go to our Facebook page or get in touch with us and let us know. Or maybe you are entrepreneurial and would like to make some of these. I think there is definitely a demand as they do get older and do get more rare.
Right.
Then we're going to need some things like this.
But, here's the thing, Greg. In order to get it working, you'll have to have some sort of converter like the Vector VGA that we're talking about here, which you can inquire about at vectorvga.com. The only other way, Tim, that I know to do this would be to put a MAME PC in there, emulate the game, and then hook it up to a VGA monitor. That'd be the only other way to do this, and I just don't recommend that, especially if you already have the boards. Right. If you have a legit Star Wars board set, I don't know why you would do it. I guess personal preference, you can do it. I've seen some projects with people who have done MAME for vector games, basically, with LCD monitors, but it's totally personal preference. Overall, though, if you're going to do LCD and you have a working vector board, probably going to be better, Tim, to try to get a converter like this one, or really fix what you have, because those vector monitors, yes, they will go out eventually, but the parts, I think, are still pretty readily available for those.
Yes.
So it's not like we're having a hard time finding parts. You are having a hard time finding replacement monitors. That's a different deal.
Correct.
So if you have a tube that's gone out, for instance, you may be in a hard spot with that. But overall, you should be able to fix what you have and be in good shape. So, Greg, hopefully answers your question, and good luck with whatever you decide to do with your 1983 Star Wars.
Well, you notice he says that it's still functioning.
Yes.
So, we should add the subtitle, fix the game, play the game. If it's broke, don't fix it.
That's right.
If it's fixed,
don't break it.
Don't break it, yeah. If it's already fixed, leave it alone.
We like to fix things until they're broken, though,
right.
Tim, don't we? That's what a lot of people like to do. So, yeah, you have to be careful with that. That's an IT guy thing with me, is like you fix it till it's broken, right?
Oh, right. Exactly.
So, and that's what he's trying to do here. But if it's working, leave it alone, wait till you have an issue, and then maybe look at an LCD replacement or fixing your vector monitor. So, let's see here. Let's continue on. You can use a multi-board and a JAMA harness. Game Elf has Star Wars. Okay, so apparently you could do that. You could use a Game Elf board that has the vector Star Wars and do it that way instead of using a MAME PC, but
that would be the ultimate extreme,
right.
Kind of. If your game is working, and you can, by all means, we're always going to recommend that you fix your monitor that you have.
Absolutely. So, Matt, thank you for that information. And, Tim, I think we're going to move on here. So the next one we have is, there's the overhead cam. Clicked the wrong button. Hey, everybody. A little bit of a delay there. But anyway, let's continue on here. And the next one we have was from Philberto, Tim. And we met him at Texas Pinball Festival, if you remember correctly. And he says, hey, guys, it was nice meeting you at TPF. Yeah, unfortunately, I had some family stuff come up. Couldn't make the podcast, but maybe next year. Good news, though. I did my first cap kit on my Street Fighter II Championship Edition monitor, a Pintranic CH-288. But the problem was actually not the caps. It was a single resistor on the B+ starter card. Monitor fixed and beautiful, and now I know how to solder and do cap kits. Thanks for getting me there. And Tim, I don't know if we can get enough emails that say stuff like this. We're always about encouraging people to do their own repairs. And here, Tim, Phil has done his own repair, and he has a not brand new, he has a working Street Fighter II Championship Edition monitor. So, pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, good job, man. Thank you for letting us know that.
Absolutely. So, good luck with all the rest of the repairs that you'll be doing going forward. And, of course, if we can help you out in any way, Phil, let us know. We'll be happy to do that. Okay, Tim, and we had a follow-up. I don't know if you remember from last time here. Excuse me. We had a follow-up from Tay, okay? And Tay, I don't know if you remember the last episode, Tim. He was having problems wiring a coin door, I believe. Or wiring, he was a power switch, marquee light combination, something like that. He says, hey, thanks for your help, but I wanted to ask you another question. When I upgraded my 60-in-1 board to a 412-in-1 board in my arcade cabinet, the left side of my monitor is drooping. It was looking perfect with my 60-in-1 board till I switched to the 412-in-1 board, and I am using an old-school arcade monitor. I did some adjustments with the buttons in the back of the monitor, but it didn't help. I hooked up a computer monitor, and it looks great. The monitor seems to droop only on the left side. Before I switch it, it has a great picture. So Tim, Tay here has a follow-up, and he's having a lot of problems with this kind of droop, but only with the 412-in-1 board. Works fine on a 60-in-1, works fine with the original game, but whenever he hooks up this newer style 412-in-1 board, all of a sudden we get this droop on the left side of the screen, I believe he says.
Right.
So what do you think could be causing the droop on the left side of the monitor?
Well, what we generally see when that happens, it's a particular kind of monitor.
Right.
That just doesn't sync up just right with certain boards.
Sure.
I know the Betson Imperial was kind of always known for that, but Betson Imperial was basically a knockoff of a Go7.
Right.
So if you have a Go7, you might try the Sync Mod.
Right.
And that could definitely help you. If it's not that, you literally may be out until somebody wants to post a fix for another type of monitor. You may be having to get a different monitor, a newer monitor.
Now, we should say, I mean, something to keep in mind here is adjusting the holds or the sync pots. If you have those adjustments on your monitor, that's usually what would control these type of curl issues. Sometimes B+ voltage, if it's set too high, too low, can cause curl issues like this. So those are the adjustments you'll want to look at. But if you've tried adjusting all those and you're still getting this curl, you may have a Go7 with a sync issue with the newer boards. And so Bob Roberts, Tim, you may recall, has this really nice sync mod that he talks about that you can do that will allow you to basically adapt the Go7 sync for newer boards, is what it does. And for more information on this, Tay, you can go to therealbobroberts.net/Go7notes.html. And when you go there, it'll tell you more about this. But basically, this mod upgrades the sync circuit to handle newer PCBs, eliminating the top curl in the pick. Now, Tim, you'll notice I said top curl, and Tay actually says left side.
Yeah.
Right, but if you're a vertical monitor, okay, if your monitor's mounted vertically, the top is actually on either the left or the right side.
Correct.
You see, because of the way it's mounted. And so, yeah, you could be getting this because you need to do this sync mod to your Go7 monitor in your arcade cabinet. The 60-in-1, Tim, works really well with just a standard Go7 without the mod. And, you know, obviously older arcade games work pretty well without the mod. But when you introduce these newer style games with newer style sync circuits, you may have to upgrade using this sync mod that Bob Roberts recommends. And so this is a good thing. And again, I'll put it back up here. therealbobroberts.net/Go7notes.html will give you all the information on that sync mod, Tim. And I think between adjusting some of the stuff that we talked about and maybe doing the sync mod, Tay will be back in business. Do you have any more thoughts here about Tay's question, Tim?
No, I do know that I remember a Betson Imperial one time I had like a new monitor. I could never get it to work right.
Right.
And eventually just put a different kind of monitor in there. I'm not quite sure what it ever was.
Sometimes you do. I mean, it does sometimes depend on the monitor, but overall, if it's an old arcade cabinet, I think he said it was a junior pack. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or no, just an older arcade cabinet. He told us last time, but whatever it was, it probably, like I said, worked fine with the older sync, but the fact when he uses the newer board and it's not working could contribute to that, and that's what we're going with. So.
Right.
So hopefully that answers your question, Tay. Good luck getting that curl out of your arcade monitor. Please let us know if we can help you out further from there. Now, Tim, it looks like we got some discussion here in the chat room. Wanting to know if the T-molding on a Midway cocktail table is the same as the upright cabinet, or is it a different product? I think it's the same.
Yeah.
In
fact,
Matt, looking, I was about to say, looking down here, it looks like Matt says same T-molding, and T-molding.com, Tim, which we've recommended quite a bit, is a great place to get T-molding, right?
Yes. Thank you for that, Matt.
Somebody else, YouTube Punk says, speaking of ELF, what about the Pandora boards? How did they do? I had a Pandora, maybe 2, that was pretty decent. To be honest with you, I think performance-wise they work better than the Game Elf boards, but I think the Game Elf has a better selection of games. It has more classic games on it. The Pandora boards tend to have more Fighters, Neo Geo games on them, and so it really depends on what you're looking at selection-wise. The Pandora board that I had did not have free play, which I believe the Pandora box 4 and up have free play.
Okay.
So if you need free play, you may look at the Game Elf board instead or get the newer Pandora box. But I do think it does a better job of emulating the games, but you don't have the classic selection that you have with a lot of the Game Elf boards.
Do you have to run the separate ground wire like you do on the Game Elf on some games? Remember?
It depends. Yeah,
Okay,
you got to make sure that you go by the manual.
Okay.
So, I mean, whatever the wiring is in the manual for the Pandora board or the Game Elf board that you're using, make sure you go by that. That's going to be the important part. So, some of them some of them use all the spots all the way down to the bottom. They don't have the 2 grounds on the bottom like standard JAMA harnesses have. And so make sure that you note that in your manual for the game, and rewire your cabinet accordingly.
Right.
Okay, I mean, and that's the key. So, yeah, a lot of the multi-boards are not wired up standard JAMA per se. They have a couple modifications, may have a kick harness, may have some other things. So, I mean, those are some things that you need to keep in mind with those boards. But overall, I think the Pandora boards, which just another Pandora's box, Tim, is what they're known as. I think they do a better job of the emulation, but at the same time, they don't have a lot of the classic games that a lot of people want to play, like the Game Off boards.
Right.
So, it just really depends on what your preference is as to which board you want to get. So. Okay, Tim, well, let's get into some of the questions since we've answered what's in the chat room here. And the first one I have here is from Joseph. Okay, and let's read Joseph's question real quick. He says, love the video on replacing an arcade monitor. I have the same problem with the video connectors. I too have 2 separate connectors that are on my Junior Pac-Man going to my JAMA 8200 in one connector. My problem is the vertical and horizontal wires are doubled, and I'm not sure how to splice. Any help would be great. Thanks again for sharing. And Tim, we get a lot of questions about sync.
Yes.
Like how to hook up sync on arcade monitors. We talk about this a little bit in that video on replacing an arcade monitor that you guys can check out. But overall, there are some things that you need to keep in mind. And this is something that we looked up for him, and I'm going to read this here, Tim. Both Junior Pac-Man and JAMA games use composite negative sync, which combines both the horizontal and vertical sync into one wire, which is why we must split it, depending on the monitor. So some monitors, Tim, newer monitors, usually can take a single sync wire, okay?
Right.
Which means that we don't have to do a split on it. But older monitors a lot of times have a separate sync for horizontal and vertical. Sometimes they have horizontal, vertical, positive, and negative, which means there's actually 4 sync pins.
Exactly.
And so what we have to determine is exactly what sync wires we need to hook up and where we need to hook them up. So a lot of this a lot of it depends on your monitor, and a lot of it depends on your game. Now, since both the games that he's talking about are composite negative sync, he should only have to hook up his composite sync wire. He may have to split it to the horizontal and vertical, but he only needs to hook it up to the negative sync on his monitor. And he may need to look that up by going to, a website, looking up the monitor that he has, and looking at the manual.
Correct.
So like this monitor that we have here, I just know that these top 2 here, the VS and HS at the top are the positive,
Right.
and the ones at the bottom are the negative. And this is very common, Tim. You'll see the negative sync almost broken out on a separate connector. You've probably seen this a lot in games where the negative sync's actually broken out. And so in this example, what we'd want to do is we want to split that composite negative sync from our JAMA harness and hook it up to the 2 and split it to both of the bottom vertical and horizontal sync pins, okay? But again, this depends on the monitor that you have in your game. Your monitor may take just a composite negative sync straight in, one wire matched perfectly and everything. On this particular monitor, which is just an example, we need to split that composite sync to our vertical and horizontal pins.
Right.
Okay, so that makes sense?
Yeah, can I, just from the common sense type, we have had to literally play around with that just a little bit.
Sometimes you do. And
just kind of like hook the wire up to this one, hook them both up to that, hook it up to this, and you can just hold it in that pin. I've never destroyed a monitor doing this if you're in the right place. Don't go hook it up to your voltage or nothing, but down on the sync end. So sometimes, just playing with that, and there's a picture, then you know kind of how to do it.
Exactly. And Bob Roberts has a great article, which I linked down here too.
Yes.
therealbobroberts.net/sync.html is where you can go. And so you can go there. He has a great article about sync, how to wire up sync with different monitors and everything like that. But, that's what we're talking about here, Joseph. We're talking about where to hook up those sync wires. So hopefully that makes sense. And every game is different. Some of them are composite positive sync. Some of them have separated like vertical and horizontal positive sync, vertical and horizontal negative sync. So it depends on what game board you have in your game, and it also depends on what kind of monitor that you have in your cabinet, Tim, and those are going to make the difference overall. So we did get a question here. Is Bob Roberts still in business? I know he's not taking any more orders, and he hasn't since about October of last year. The website is still up.
And contains a ton of information.
Absolutely, which is why we link to it.
Yes.
Okay, so it still has a ton of information. TheRealBobRoberts.net we highly recommend going to. But unfortunately, Bob is not taking orders right now.
Right.
I hope that changes in the future, but you can't order from him, but still a lot of great information to find on therealbobroberts.net, Tim. So you can still go there. I will link to it here again, therealbobroberts.net/sync.html, Joseph, for some great information on sync issues should you have some. So, Tim, I think that we got Joseph's question pretty well handled, so hopefully answers it, and good luck hooking up those sync wires to your arcade monitor. Okay, Tim, let's move to Adam. And Adam says here, let's bring it up. Hi, I have a Namco Ninja Assault game. I followed your guide to repair the light guns, but they're still not working. My gun never shoots on the screen, no matter where you aim it. There is just a flash in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. I can't seem to find anything about what the boards are supposed to look like when in use. Wondering if you have any tips. Now, Tim, we get a lot of questions about light guns. In fact, we have a light gun right over here, right behind you here with a police trainer. But we get a lot of questions about light guns. Oh, you're going to hold one up for us?
Yeah,
there you go. There we go.
I'm not robbing you.
Okay. Not this time anyway. There we go. So we get a lot of questions about light guns. Happens quite a bit. But it sounds like here, Tim, Adam has tried everything. Well, he says he's tried everything in our video. And he's still not getting anything on the screen, okay?
Right.
So, I mean, there's a couple of things it could be. One, he needs to make sure that the gun is hooked up properly. Because sometimes we can hook up the triggering mechanism, but we won't have the optical sensor hooked up correctly to the board, correct?
Correct.
And so you need to make sure that your guns are wired properly to your Ninja Assault board. That's number one, I think,
Right.
before anything. Now, Tim, in the video for troubleshooting light gun issues, we talk about a lot of different things that you can do. But if you've tried all those things, you've tried to recalibrate, you've tried to turn up the brightness on your monitor, you've tried all the stuff that we talked about, and it's still not working, Tim, probably need to either replace the gun or replace the optic board, right?
Right.
I mean, those are kind of the, what would you call it, like items of last resort, right?
Yeah, and you got a picture, if you'll bring that up, John. Here is the Type 1, like the gun that I had in my hand.
Right.
The optic at the top up there, you can just replace that. If you want to circle on that, the optic right up at the top of the gun.
Here.
That right there, you can just replace that. But the whole board's not that expensive. The last one I bought, I think, was less than $20 or around $20.
They're $20 or $30 depending on the board. And these are available from Suzo Hap. I put this up here. Check the board currently in your gun and replace with same board.
Yeah, they carry several different types.
Yeah, and I listed the two most common universal ones. But they have ones for specific games as well.
Yeah, they have it like they have SAMI guns and lots of pump shotguns, all that kind of stuff. So the only other thing, if it's not this board, you got the wiring going to it, which you can do a continuity check right where it plugs in, right down there, to the end of your pins and make sure every wire is okay.
Right.
If the continuity is fine, then you also got to have voltage there, right?
Correct.
See, and sometimes we don't stress that enough. You've got to have enough voltage to power that, to make that optic work. If your voltage is good in that, then replace this board by all means.
So it may actually excuse me, it may actually be a power supply issue depending if you're not getting enough voltage up to your gun, correct?
Most of the time, and I've worked on a lot of light guns, it is usually the wiring.
Okay. Usually the wiring.
Just because of kids playing with it and doing all kinds of stuff, hitting each other, or that optic goes off at the very end.
Yeah.
But so the board will fix that though. If you get a board, it comes with the optic, and a lot of times it'll come unsoldered right at the end, and you can just touch that up and you're fixed. So check for the soldering connections there. You can even do a continuity check on both sides of the board. There is a way now that I have done this in the past, John. You can take a cell phone. So you can take your cell phone out and use your camera and look through the camera with the light. You can see the infrared light or shine the light to your camera on your phone. And if you see it flash or light there, then the optic is probably working.
Gotcha. Okay, so a good way to check the optic just in case.
Considering,
I mean, the optic is cheap, and you may just need to replace that, but the whole universal board is pretty cheap. Like I said, $20 or $30 is what you're looking at to replace the entire board inside.
Well, I have seen a ton of them, though, being a broken wire.
Oh, yeah, because, and like Tim mentioned, these things get beat up. They get twisted around them all the time. Very common that we'll see wiring issues with light guns. So make sure you check the wiring. Continuity test is your best friend, Tim, in this particular case.
Yes.
Making sure that the wiring is getting all the way back to the board. Voltages are good. You should be in good shape. And if everything checks out wiring-wise, voltage-wise, replace the gun board, right?
Yep.
I mean, or get a whole new gun. But, I mean, $30 for a gun board versus how much for a new gun? 100 and something?
Yeah,
they're pretty expensive. So, yeah. So, I mean, it's something to think about. But definitely worth just replacing the board in the gun if you can get away with it. If your housing is good, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, kids will drop them, they'll crack, other things like that. But if your housing is still good, worth getting the board. And Tim, we're just going to show that for everybody here one more time. This is the Type 1 board that we have here. That's why I put Type 1 up here. Mm-hmm. But you'll see the optic again, you'll see the board, and you'll see the wiring here. And that's really you'll need to check everything. And one of these is for the knocker, right, Tim? And then one of these is for the
yes.
One of these is for the actual wiring to the gun usually. Mm-hmm. So you have the when I say knocker, recoil.
Yes.
Whatever you want to call it. So I call it a knocker because it looks like a knocker up in the gun.
Looks like a pinball coil.
Exactly. So, but that's what you're looking at. But yeah, you may just need to replace this whole board depending on what the problem is with your game. And Matt chimed in here. He said, I had a broken wire inside the harness on Time Crisis, fixable, but was not easy. I did a video if anyone is curious. So if you want to see what some of the wiring issues you may see in some of the games are, Matt has a video for you that you might check out. So, Adam, hopefully answers your question, and good luck getting that Ninja Assault game up and running. And Tim, I always see Ninja Assault, so I don't think I've ever played it.
Right.
It's a Ninja, like, Time Crisis type game, or light gun game. So a very interesting game for sure. Okay, Tim, let's move to Tim here. Okay, so somebody who shares your name. He says, hello, first, thank you for your awesome videos. I hope you can give me direction to troubleshoot a power issue on the CPU board of my Millipede game. The game did work, sat in the garage for a few years. When I brought it in and plugged it in, I got a large spark at the wall outlet. I've tested the power at the brick and the power board, replaced caps on all boards. It is sending 5.1 to the CPU board. Once I plug it in, it drops between 1.9 and 2 volt. I adjusted the voltage up and it made little difference. I tried using an ATX power supply for the 5 volt source, and that was even worse, showing about 0.8 volts. I pulled all of the socketed chips and the voltage went up a little bit, but still under 3 volts. The question is, where do I begin to trace the issue down to a faulty component? Visually, the board looks great. No burn marks, no cold solder joints. Have you ever come across this type of issue? And if so, how did you troubleshoot it? Thanks, Tim. As for the video, the neck lit up but nothing on the screen and no sound through speakers. I've pulled the monitor and replaced all the caps but haven't plugged it back in. I pulled the boards and the wiring harness and have it on my bench. I figured I need to get this 5 volts issue resolved before plugging the monitor back in. Hope you can help. So Tim, we have Tim here, and he's got a Millipede game that apparently is not getting voltage.
Yes.
Okay, now it sounds like he thought it may be a monitor issue because he pulled the monitor. But the fact that he's only getting like 1 volt DC on that 5 volts line probably tells us it's not a monitor issue, right?
It's probably, and it may not be a main board issue. It's more than likely you can go ahead and bring it up on the screen if you want. It's what's a audio regulator board.
Right, and that's what I was thinking, Tim. Of course, I put here check for burned areas on the AR2. Of course, he says he's already done that and everything looks fine. But something I do want to remind people is the 2N3055 transistor. This one located right here on the heatsink.
Yes.
If it goes bad, you may get a symptom such as this. And sometimes it doesn't look like it's bad. It doesn't have burn marks around it or anything like that. And so in this particular case, I would highly advise Tim to start there and look for a that 2N3055 transistor, see if it tests good, okay, and see if it's okay. And if it's not, replace it. Now, Tim, he may need to rebuild the whole thing, okay, because sometimes it's hard to tell, exactly, where the issue is. And so a rebuild kit is not a bad idea. Of course, typically, Tim, we would recommend Bob Roberts for those.
Right.
But since he's not taking orders, Arcade Shop also sells these rebuild kits that you can get. And so a rebuild kit may be a good way to handle this. And Tim, of course, you can always trace down through all the parts, where the AC voltage comes in. You can trace around and see, where the voltage starts to die off a little bit. If you want to, you can do that manually. We like the shotgun approach of just doing a rebuild kit, right?
Right.
But it's totally up to you. You can handle it either way. But rebuild kit would probably be a good idea in this case. Now, a lot of people would also recommend the Sense Mod, which I put a link to. But, Tim, there's a lot of mixed opinions on the Sense Mod lately. I don't know if you've known that. Some people think it's great, some people don't. It's kind of a mixed bag. But I put it on here just in case you want to look at that as an option for your repair. So the Sense Mod is one way to go. But overall, I would check that 2N3055 transistor and then maybe do a rebuild kit at that point to see how it goes. Tim, is there anything else that you have for Tim here as far as his millipede is concerned?
Well, one thing that I do a lot of times is you want to see what's draining the voltage. So sometimes, just unplugging your monitor, and if you're getting your good voltage there, you could have something there.
Right.
Or unplugging your main board, your motherboard, and seeing if you got good voltage until when you plug it in, does it drain?
Right, and that's what it sounds like. It sounds like he's got good voltage before he plugs in the main board, but when he plugs it in, it starts to drop. I mean, he gave us a lot of detail. That's what I'm thinking it is here. So,
it could be his main motherboard.
And it could be. There could be a short or something that's causing that. And so at that point, you may need to trace through. And of course, with Tim, we have a great video on inspecting an arcade board. That'd be really great to check out at that point with some great tips on how to handle some of those type of issues. And so it's definitely worth, though, I think, Tim, first trying to look at the AR2 board and then going to the main board after that. Because you want to make sure that AR2 board is giving good voltage out and enough to power the board.
Yes.
That is the key. And so the AR2 is where we'll start, and then if everything checks out there, you fix everything, and you're still getting that voltage drop, probably a problem with the main board. Inspecting an arcade board, great information there on that. Tim, anything else for Tim here?
No, just let us know, Tim, if we can follow up with you on that one.
Sounds good. So Tim, hopefully answers your question. Good luck getting that millipede game back up and running. And Tim, the reason I'm thinking the AR2 board is probably because when he plugged it in, he got that big spark. I mean, it shouldn't get to the main board. It shouldn't. It could, but I mean, it's always an outside chance that could be the case. What about Big Blue? Could Big Blue be a problem in this particular instance?
It doesn't sound like a Big Blue issue.
Okay, so I mean, just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Though. Talking about power supplies. So there you go. So Tim, hopefully answers your question. Good luck getting that millipede game back up and running. And Tim, I'm going to go over to the chat room here for a second, and we have Ed, and he says, I have a Go7 chassis, totally rebuilt chassis, works fine, but I have a pink screen. I've adjusted the G2, but still pink. Any ideas? And so I'm wondering, is it pink, like just solid pink, or are you getting like a pink, like, is it like a reddish picture? Like I'm still getting picture from my board?
Too much red.
Right, is it too much red? I mean, and maybe that's the question here, Ed. So are you getting like too much red where you still see a little bit of the game, or is it like a completely pink screen?
Yes.
Because if it's a completely pink screen and you're not seeing any of the game, you may have a board issue.
Right.
Okay, but if you're seeing some game through through all of the
just too much
red, there's too much red, too much of that color on there, then you may actually have a monitor issue at that point. You may need to adjust some of your settings on the color, or maybe replace some color transistors as well.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you rebuild a chassis, but a lot of people forget about the neck board.
Yes, exactly.
And the neck board has your drive transistors and also the pots up there, which sometimes just from taking it on and off can get a solder crack or something. I'd reflow the solder on all three of your drives or your drive transistors and your pots up on your neck board.
And we talk a lot about drive transistors in our video on checking a monitor tube. And so, Ed, you might check out that video because it does have some recommendations for like where those are located and how to touch those up, how to fix those as far as solder and stuff is concerned. If you're getting a solid pink screen, though, it may be because your board is malfunctioning and is not putting out the game screen as it's supposed to. And
right.
So,
he says it works, so I'm assuming it's playing.
Right.
And
so we're probably got too much red.
Too much red is what we're thinking. Ed, you want to follow up in the chat room, we'll come back to you.
Sounds good. So, Tim, let's go ahead and move on to Keith then, since we've kind of finished up the chat room here. And Keith says, hi, guys. I am enjoying watching your show. I recently picked up two Cruis'n Worlds with 25-inch NTE-25E monitors. They seem to change focus after warming up, and one has its red pretty washed out. Overall, they work okay, and I'm sure with a cap kit and adjusting the flybacks, I could get them back to perfect. But I would rather just replace them with a wider LCDs, as I've heard it's a better experience anyway. Plus, I would like to eventually use the cabinets in a dual boot sort of situation where I could also run these as a couple of MAME and console drivers. Anyways, the question is, I don't think the monitors are worthless, but I really don't want them. Do you think they have any value? If so, who should I approach to sell them? I also have an old Gorf I plan on turning into an upright MAME as well. Its monitor probably has to go too. Now, Tim, I'm not going to do the PS yet. We're going to continue on here. But we have Keith, and he's got two Cruis'n Worlds, and the monitors are okay. Too much red on one, maybe a little out of focus on both. Obviously, it sounds like pretty minor issues, Tim. Like stuff that he could probably take care of. And even he says he could probably just do a cap kit, probably do a flyback and be fine.
Yeah, he's right.
And he's right. Yeah, you could. And how much would that cost him?
Probably about
$100.
less than 100.
Well, for 2 flybacks and a cap kit,
right?
Something like that, $100. Or you could replace them with wider LCDs. Now, Tim, if you're going to do that, okay, we always recommend going with an arcade quality LCD.
Yeah, don't go to Best Buy and just get a monitor off the shelf.
Which you can do. Okay,
Right.
I mean, it'll work. You can get a converter board and do that. But as far as the quality that you get, those really weren't designed to be in arcade cabinets.
Right.
Plus, you'll have to figure out a way to power them on every time you turn on the game. Okay, now in a home environment, that's not such a big deal. So if you're having these at your home, Keith, it's fine. But overall, it's really a pain if you have them out on location, Tim, if you have to go and have like a remote control and try to turn it on every time you do it, right?
Yes.
And so overall, it's pretty difficult. Mm-hmm. So for me, and just for perfectly ease of use, I know it's more expensive, but these arcade LCDs, Tim, are designed to be in arcade cabinets, and that's what it comes down to. But like, what does a good 32, 27-inch arcade LCD cost, Tim? $300,
about
$400,
$325, somewhere around there. And you can catch sales sometimes. So.
Right. Or you could just for $100 fix what you got, right?
Yes.
And so those are your options. Yeah, you can go with LCD if you want to, but I mean the fixes overall would be pretty cheap. And so overall, we would probably recommend that you go with the fixes over doing other things like replacing LCDs. Totally up to you, though. And if you want to go the TV route, you can do that. You'll have to get some converter boards and things in order to make that work.
Yes.
But it is a route you can go. It is cheaper to go that route, but overall, we don't like it because of all of the workarounds you have to do. Mounting it is difficult, Tim, because you have to kind of figure out how to mount it in the cabinet. And then, like we said, you have the converter board we have to worry about and other things like that. And so overall, arcade quality LCD is going to be the way to go if you want to go that way. So, and I think, let's see. Do they think they have any value? If so, who should I approach to sell them? So, yes, your monitors absolutely have value, right, Tim?
Yes.
The ones that are in your Cruising Worlds right now obviously are worth something to collectors like us, right?
Correct.
And so what we would recommend is go on to either Craigslist or you could go on to your local arcade group site, right?
Uh-huh.
And then, go ahead and do, put out there, I've got 2 25, 27-inch monitors for sale and how much you want for them. Tim, what would you, they're not perfect. So what do you think these things are worth?
Well, they're probably worth $100 a piece, I would think.
That's what I was thinking, too. I think
now,
$100 a piece is a very fair price.
You may get $100 just for the chassis.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you toss the tubes or did something with the tubes, you could probably get just as much for the chassis and have more buyers because of the shipping cost.
Correct.
So that's an option that I would bring up.
Right, and you could always sell them on eBay too, right, Tim?
Yeah.
You could sell just a chassis on eBay. It's easy to ship a chassis, and that might be a good way to do it. Of course, then you're stuck with the tube. But really, Tim, I'd like to see the whole monitor go to a collector in your area, because there's probably collectors in your area that need everything, right? Need a total monitor replacement. It's a great thing.
Maybe even an operator that would be interested in them.
Correct. So best thing to do, local Craigslist, arcade groups on Facebook that you're a part of, post it in there. And, I think Tim's right. $100 a piece seems like a very fair price for 2 pretty much working monitors.
Yeah.
So, now he says he has an old Gorf. He plans on turning to an upright MAME. He wants the monitor to go in it. Again, we're always going to recommend that you do, that you repair what you have.
Right.
Over getting rid of it. But that's totally up to you. If you want to make it into a MAME, nothing wrong with doing LCD in that as well, right? And you could post all those to sell together, and I'm sure some collector out there would take you up on the offer, right?
Yeah, and keep it as a Gorf and trade it to somebody that has a cabinet you could put a MAME in.
And that may be a better way to do it, right? Exactly. If you're
somebody would really want that Gorf,
right? If the Gorf is fully working, especially,
I would probably try to trade with somebody for a generic cabinet.
There you go. So if you have a Gorf that's working, trade for a generic cabinet instead, and it may make a better MAME anyway, right, Tim?
Yes.
Sounds good. Now, Keith has a PS here at the end, Tim. I don't know if you saw this. If you could tell the story about how Tim came to be a Chuck E. Cheese tech, I would love to hear it. Also, it sounds like he works for corporate and not just a regular store. Is that true? Well, Tim, you get to have a little fun with this one. So, how did you come to be a Chuck E. Cheese tech?
I worked for a grocery company, and I had games at home, and they were laying off our department. And so everybody had a resume, and we were sending it out, and I had my friend's resume. So if I saw a job before he did, say on Monster or whatever, I would send his resume. If he saw one for mine, and he told me, he said that he said, hey, I applied for you for a job as an arcade tech, and I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah. He's like, with Chuck E. Cheese, and I thought, are you kidding me, really? And that's kind of how I went for an interview, and I can remember the guy interviewing me. We opened up the back end of a game, and he was asking me some questions. Now we're talking almost 17 years ago, so he was asking me what the names of certain things were, and I didn't know everything. So I told him, I said, let me tell you what, don't touch that thing right there. Don't do this, and don't make sure those wires don't touch down there. I can't always say, that's why we laugh when I say I can't always tell you what to do, but a lot of times I can tell you what not to do. And he was impressed enough, I guess, to offer me a job, and I thought, I'll do it and be here 6 months or a year, get some experience, and here we are years later. Now, I do have a home store. I do quite a bit of traveling sometimes just because of the experience.
Yeah, you're not technically corporate, right?
Right.
Not technically corporate.
Not technically corporate. I do have a home store here in Tyler, which I am at most of the time, unless they need me to go somewhere else or I'm on a project or whatever. I've done more traveling in the last year than ever before. I hope that answers everything.
I think so. Yeah,
not a real exciting story, but Nolan Bushnell didn't call me up personal or nothing.
Now, I remember when you first started, though, a lot of the people that you worked with had worked with Nolan, right?
Oh yeah, in fact, a lot of the guys that are now retired or have went on to other things. I really did get to hear a lot of those stories and stuff about working when Chuck E. Cheese first opened, and was some really neat stories and some good times back then.
Yeah, and like you said, you travel a lot, so you go to different stores a lot and do training and wiring and fixing. But most of the time, you're here locally, right?
Most of the time,
right?
And because a lot of times people call me on the phone, or we can work it out. Then sometimes I just enjoy going to other places and helping out the techs. I have 4 assistant techs that are now techs. One is overall in Mexico, so we congratulations there, Jerry. But it's just
your recent ATEC went somewhere too, didn't he?
Yeah, to Texarkana.
So you're training a lot of the techs that go on to different stores, right?
It seems that way, or I have been lucky enough to have some guys that I could train that could go on and stay with the company. So.
Absolutely. So you've been doing it a long time. Now, it should be said that you had some arcade experience before Chuck E. Cheese.
Like I didn't know. When I was a kid, a guy in our church opened the first arcade, and it was at a place called Bob's Pig Shop, and it just had a few games and a pool table and stuff. It's still in business in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. Shout out to Bob's family. Bob had passed away, I think, last year, year before last. But he didn't know much about working on games. I didn't know much, but he would send me to Radio Shack. Actually sold parts that you could fix games with back in those days.
It won't be around much longer, just so you know. Go while you can.
Anyway, so his daughter Heidi still owns a place, and we just learned kind of as we went. That's why we called the Atari book the Bible, because nobody knew. We didn't even know how to solder, and we learned a lot. It was just a pretty good gap between there and owning my first home arcade game, which was a pole position.
Right.
But I remembered working on that stupid game all the time back in the 80s, and I was always breaking down, and so I was able to fix my own game. But definitely most of my experience has been self-taught or, at Chuck E. Cheese, what I've learned there.
There you go. So I think that answers this question, though, Tim. So Keith, hopefully, you got some good information out of that between... obviously the monitor stuff and Tim's Chuck E. Cheese story. So there you go. So, okay, well that was fun, Tim. Now let's go ahead and go to the back to the chat room. I wonder if Tim and Jonathan watch John's arcade videos. You watch any of them?
I have, especially his Vector stuff is very good. Not a long time, but I like his videos. They're good.
They're very good.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, it's pinballs. It's flippers.com. I want to say
no, different John.
Oh, different John. Okay. No, you're talking about John's Arcade.
John's Arcade.
John's
right.
Arcade.
Yeah, there you go.
And yes, his videos are very down to earth. I like his format. I know what you're talking about now. And, I guess really We don't watch a lot. I don't go to the chat rooms much.
See, me neither. It's like, it's weird when you produce content. It's like, I've seen a couple of them. They're good. I mean, they're very good videos. I know you guys like them, and they're awesome.
Our goal's never been to one-up anybody or nothing. We're just...
And there's enough room for everybody on YouTube as far as that is concerned with Arcade Repair. The more Arcade Repair information out there, the better.
Right.
Is our philosophy. So if it's John's Arcade doing it, or if it's us doing it, or if it's Matt in the chat room doing it, or whoever it is that's doing it, the more information we can get out there, the better.
But it seems like, just to give you a story, probably about a year ago, I was working on a game at Chuck E. Cheese. I can't remember. It seemed like it was a San Francisco Rush or something. And I was like, gosh, what do people do? And I'm like, I know it's some kind of board issue, and I think I watched a video of his and fixed my game. So,
there you go. Hey. So like we said, it's all about getting enough information out there, whether it's John's videos, our videos, whoever's videos it is. It's all about putting out some good information. So there you go. So yeah, we've seen them before. I haven't watched a whole lot of them, Tim. Maybe one or two. I mean, but they're
more
good.
like bits and pieces.
Exactly,
because I kind of fast forward to what I think I need.
And they're long, typically.
Yeah.
Like his are very long. We try to keep ours very concise and kind of on one tip. Like, this is the one thing that we're going to be doing. He goes very detailed, very in depth on something, but sometimes they get a little long because of that. And so
yeah.
And so
I don't think kind of what I've done.
Exactly. Fast forwarding through and finding the information that you need, I think, is perfect. So, but yeah, he's got some great information, and if you haven't checked him out, definitely need to check him out on YouTube. We actually, I think, are subscribed to his channel through our channel. So, I mean, just to show you. But there's a lot of people who have great Arcade Repair channels out there, Tim. It's not just John, not just us, but there's a lot of them out there you need to check out.
It's kind of neat, and there's new ones almost every month that we're not aware of. So, by all means, use what's out there today, because they may not be around. We thought Bob Roberts would be around forever, and so now, we may not be around forever. So, use what you can, get all the knowledge that you can, and then share what you know.
Absolutely. So now, Tim, we're kind of past the questions now. If anybody has questions in the chat, we'll answer them. So I'll leave that open there for you. But I did want to. I don't know if you had a tech tip for us this month. I didn't tell you about it. So I know you always give us a tech tip sometimes.
Yeah, this month it's kind of snuck up on me with some outside issues and stuff. But
so I decided to do
one next month.
Right. I decided to do a game recommendation instead.
Okay.
So this is a iOS mobile game that I'm going to be talking about, and somebody else referred it to me, Tim, and it's a lot of fun. It is called Pinout. Okay, do you like pinball, Tim?
Yes.
Do you like Tron?
Oh, yeah.
Do you like electronica music?
Oh, yeah.
Then you're going to like Pinout.
Okay.
Okay, so Pinout is a mobile game, again, for Android and iOS devices. And basically, Tim, you know how Temple Run is like an endless runner?
Yes.
This is like an endless pinball table.
Okay.
So the idea is to transition through different levels. Okay, and as you transition through the levels, and each table is kind of like a level, and then you'll go through like a series of levels, and there'll be a checkpoint, and the colors will kind of change, and you'll go into the next section.
Okay.
So there's kind of like this multi-level pinball table, and then there's a checkpoint, and then you get a new set of multi-level pinball tables. And it's endless. It goes on forever. But if you haven't played Pinout is a lot of fun, Tim. And it's completely free. Okay. For $1.99, it gives you the option to start from a checkpoint, which is helpful. I have not paid the money yet, but I will, just because I like the game so much. And I did want to show you some screenshots of it here. So this is what it looks like.
Okay.
If you haven't played it, but I mean, it's basically pinball, and you're just trying to advance up levels. And just like how in an endless runner, it's how far you can get. It's the same thing in this. It's how far you can get. How far you can kind of transition up all of the tables and everything like that to get to where you want to go. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, and you'll see it's very Tron inspired. I mean, just from these screenshots here. But go get Pinout from your iOS, Android store for your phone. It's addictive. I've been playing it on and off. And I like the music, like I said, real Tron-like, trance-like, real good stuff. So if you like pinball, play Pinout. It's a good game, and maybe I'll post my score. I don't have my phone on me right now, Tim, but I'll post like how high I've gotten so far.
Okay.
You guys can see if you can pass me. But it's a lot of fun. Man, I tell you what, Pinout, Tim, I've been addicted to it, really. If you like Pac-Man 256, kind of similar to that as well.
Okay.
So good stuff. Okay, let's see here. Continuing on. Now, Tim, we have some discussion. Okay, so we don't, no more questions in here as far as I can see. So we'll continue out here, and I wanted to discuss some of the things we posted on our Facebook page. Me and Louie have been posting, of course. And this one was Donkey Kong and Street Fighter II have been inducted into the World Video Game Hall of Fame. And our question to our Facebook users was, what are some of the memories you have playing these arcade games? Okay. So Adam says, the Street Fighter 2 competitiveness was insane. I remember a row of about 10 big blue cabinets at my arcade that were always packed. Okay, and I'm the same way, Tim. I tell you what, when I went up to my local arcade, there was a line. There were 2 Street Fighter arcades. There were lines, Tim, here in town to play Street Fighter 2 at the arcade. It was insane. And you know those little quarter stacker things that oh man, those things would be full. All 10 slots. Ready to go.
Right.
So, I mean, it was a really big deal. Street Fighter 2, Tim, I don't think we can underestimate how popular it was at the time. It brought the arcade back, literally.
Well, exactly. And I can remember actually playing Donkey Kong about that time, because now I could play Donkey Kong all the time because nobody was playing it.
That's right.
And I can remember working in the arcade and thinking, wow, this is the crash. You know, it's kind of over. And then all of a sudden this new fighting game came, and, you know, to see everybody lined back up and playing, like you said, it was probably out a couple months before I even got to play it one time. You know, because I just was always playing something that nobody else was playing over there. But I remember working in the arcade back in those days. It was awesome.
Yeah, Street Fighter 2 was, I mean,
good
huge.
money maker.
And then Charles says, my dentist had a Donkey Kong and it was hard. So apparently Charles's dentist, Tim, cranked up the difficulty on the Donkey Kong cabinet for the kids. So, but Donkey Kong is always a hard game. It doesn't matter what the difficulty set on. It's still a difficult game to play. But Tim, any specific other memories with Donkey Kong? I know you mentioned some of the Street Fighter 2 ones. Any specific memories kind of stick out in your head?
You know, I can remember, I remember kids at school in the playground talking about going to the pie factory, you know?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I was like, what are they talking about, this pie factory? And I was hungry at lunch, you know? I wanted to go to the pie factory. And so I literally remember them talking about the pie factory. And so finally I figured out, it was a level in this Donkey Kong game. So I remember thinking getting to the third pie factory was so hard, you know. I remember that. Yeah.
I tell you what, I love playing Donkey Kong. It's a great game. Street Fighter 2, of course, Tim. My cousins and I, when we were kids, they had an arcade around the corner. We would always go up there. And my cousin came into my game room one day, saw the Street Fighter. He's like, we got to play that. And we played a couple of rounds. I think we split 50-50. 5 each. We did 10 different games, and so it brought back a lot of good memories of him playing as Chun-Li trying to beat me. Usually,
I think both games are kind of a must-have for collectors if you've got a game room like yours, or that enough room. That I think there are 2 games you kind of got to have.
Absolutely. Now, if you guys have any memories of Donkey Kong or Street Fighter 2, please share them in the chat, and we'll share those here as we continue on. Now, Tim, it looks like we do have a thing here. I have a purity issue on a Sanyo 20EZ. Can you touch on that subject? So he's having a purity issue, Tim. Anything that you want to say about that real quick?
You know, the EZ monitor kind of scares a lot of people in a way, just because of the difficulty of kind of getting it in and out. Right. But it's actually not that hard to work on. But here's when he talks about a purity issue, you know, I have seen, it seems like, this is just my opinion, more Sanyo tubes that go bad, because normally you're always like, it's never the tubes, never the tube, never the tube. I have actually seen more than any other tube go bad. Right. And I do not know, so man, that may be something that you really need to look at.
But with that said, tube rejuvenation may be an option for purity issues.
Exactly. Correct? That's exactly what I would try on that. So maybe. Yeah. And they can be a little hard to troubleshoot. Most of them, though, are pretty easy once you do the cap kit and stuff. I'm sure he's already done all that. Tube rejuvenation is what I would definitely recommend.
Okay. Well, we'll continue on here with that. Now, again, any memories of Donkey Kong or Street Fighter 2, and we'll read them off here in a second. But, Tim, we had some more interesting discussion, and this prompted a lot of discussion on our Facebook page, and that is that Nintendo has officially discontinued the NES Classic Edition. Now, Tim, I know this isn't necessarily arcade-related, but a lot of people who were interested in arcades are also interested in the NES. It was fond memories of that, myself playing that. And so there's a great article, Tim, that talks about, and this is on BusinessInsider.com, why Nintendo isn't making the NES Classic Edition anymore. Yeah. And these were the 5 reasons that they gave, and I'll show you here. The NES Classic Edition was never intended to be a product. Okay. Is one of the things that they say. Nintendo has a history of creating collector's items. Nintendo has a new console, the Nintendo Switch, to sell you. That's more expensive.
Right? I can see that one.
Nintendo is extremely protective of its classic games, which it is. I mean, that's why they have the Virtual Console. And Nintendo wants to sell you classic games on the Switch.
Probably.
Okay, so these are the reasons that they gave. Tim, just what do you think of the NES Classic? Now, you got to play. I got one. Okay, I was able to get one. You got to play it. So, what'd you think of it?
I really like it.
Yeah, it's
fun.
fun.
It's just fun, and it definitely is. Plays old school Nintendo. Just real quick, hook up, play. Just want to play a couple games, or what I really like it for is like if you had a party or something, and you had one not long after that, and you might elaborate on that a lot of people were drawn to that.
Oh yeah, it probably got more play than any of my arcade games.
Wow. So it's something everybody remembers. So I thought it was a great idea. I still wonder. I don't know what Nintendo's deal is with this game they kind of play.
Yeah, the supply game, I guess you could call it.
And they may turn around and reissue it or something. I don't know. I don't know what their deal is, but whatever it was worth, I think it was pretty cool. But like most guys would say, well, if you just want an emulator or something or another a Famicom or something, you can get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Not impossible.
We've been emulating games for a long time. It's nice though that this was packaged. It was legal. It looked like the NES. It was very nice, and it's still a very nice piece of hardware.
Have you seen what are the prices going for now that it's been discontinued?
I haven't even looked recently. I know that after the announcement, they jacked up pretty good, like over $200, $300 range.
Wow.
So I mean, considering it's only a $60 item,
right.
So but it is a lot of fun to play. It's not worth that much to me.
Right.
Okay, it's worth what I paid for it. I probably would have paid $100 for it.
Okay.
I mean, $100 I think would have been a fair price too. Anything above that, I don't know if I would have invested in it.
Yeah.
Okay. And so for those of y'all who are looking at buying one on eBay, if you're going to pay over $100, $120 maybe max, Tim. $120, that'd be double the price. If you're going to pay over that, I don't know if it's worth it. You may just be better off getting like a Raspberry Pi, do an emulation or something like that.
That's what I would do.
For
that kind of price.
But if you have any thoughts on the NES Classic Edition and what Nintendo has done as far as discontinuing it, please give us some thoughts in the chat room or in the comments section if we've already gone offline, and we'll be happy to discuss those on the next show. And Tim, I think that about does... Oh, okay, hang on here. I have some more things here. Some of the discussion that came from that. And it says, Jacob says, the last line of the Kotaku article says it all. Given the widespread excitement, interest, and sales of the NES Classic, it only makes sense for Nintendo to stop selling it. And so, very interesting quote there from the Kotaku article. Devin says, I knew this was going to happen 2 months after they had sold out. There was no way Nintendo would let this much time go by without restocking. All the signs were there. And Charles says, Nintendo has been playing these stupid engineered shortages since 1984. They can go sit on attack. So there you go.
Matt in the chat room brings up a good point that people were modding it.
Right, exactly.
And maybe they saw, they're listening and reading and stuff. He says he put more than 700 titles on his.
Right.
So the fact that it was easily mod, I think maybe they thought about it. Well, if people are just going to mod and put every game we ever make on there, then maybe we should stop it. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, and I mean, they chose to go with basically open archecture with Android operating system, I believe, or Linux operating system, something very simple. And so, it was just a matter of time before it happened, really. And I don't know if it really did anything like, I don't know if it was really a, excuse me, I don't know if that was really the reason necessarily. I think it was more because collectors ate them up. And there are people buying multiples to sell. And I think the reseller market is really why we have these engineered shortages in a way. Because they said they sold like 2 million of these things, something like that. A pretty high number of them. So, I mean, hopefully at some point we can get a re-release, or maybe the Super Nintendo Classic Edition will be coming very soon. So, sorry for those of you guys who couldn't get one. We tried to post links, Tim, whenever we saw them in stock. We tried to post them on our Facebook page so you guys could have a chance at them. So, but overall, Tim, I hope that you got one if you wanted one. And if not, hopefully Nintendo will, at some point, re-release it to those people who may not have gotten one the first time around. So, well, Tim, I think it's about time to go here. I'm already past 6:30, but we do have a question from Pac-Man Arcade. He says, I have a Bally $6 Million Man pin. I have tried to put LEDs in it. And it has fits. I've seen people put them in pins in a 78. Any advice? And so Louis, Tim, our Facebook moderator, just put ones in his Captain Fantastic.
Yes.
Which is a very similar aged pinball machine. And I mean, the biggest thing is, yes, you can put them in there. And actually, I mean, I don't think you really have to make much of a modification to the actual sockets or anything to get it working. I mean, you just basically replace the bulbs. Louis did pass along some things, though, Tim, if I remember correctly. He said he would have gone with the frosted.
Yes, the frosted.
The frosted, and I forgot what the other thing was that he said. What do they say? It's soft.
Yes. The
soft instead of the hard LED. You know, you'd go with the soft frosted bulb-looking ones with the topper instead of going with the clear hard LED. Right. Gives it more of a harsh LED look.
You don't want the super bright ones.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm talking about. The soft apparently is what you want. The soft, kind of like how you'd have a soft white in light bulbs instead of like a bright white. So soft white is really what you want. You want frosted. And just get ones that fit the sockets for your game. I'm not sure if that's bayonet style, probably, but whatever it is. Coin Taker, Tim sells those if you're looking for LED replacements. But it should be pretty simple. I think it's a pretty simple replacement, right, Tim?
Yes.
So, I mean, it's just a matter of switching out the bulbs. I mean, no different than you would do if one had gone out and you got a replacement for it. So, again, frosted tip, soft white, with the bulb cover over it, I think is what Louis recommended to us when he did his Captain Fantastic. So,
right.
Sound good?
Yeah, it sounds good.
Okay, anything else?
No, I think we're about ready to go.
Okay, that's good. Well, this is officially the May episode.
Right.
Since last time was kind of like April version 2.
Right.
This is the May episode. Hopefully you guys had a better time streaming it this time. Hopefully we got all the streaming issues out, Tim.
Yeah, you guys that are still in the chat room, a lot of you stayed with us. How was the streaming today?
Yeah, we'll get a little feedback while we go over the contact information, Tim. So let's do that real quick and then we'll sign off. So, Tim, we have our general email. That's at questions@arcaderepairtips.com. Questions@arcaderepairtips.com. If you want us to mention it on the live show, make sure you put live show in the subject and we will mention it on the show. Tim, a couple of these questions from this one actually came from people who sent us an email with live show in the title. So there you go. So if you put it in there, we will add it. And that's at questions@arcaderepairtips.com. And of course, you guys are on our YouTube page. That's at youtube.arcaderepairtips.com. And comments from the last live show will be covered on the next episode. That's what we did at the beginning today, right?
Yes.
There you go. So any comments that you leave here in this live show, even if it's not live, we will cover on the next episode. So you guys make sure that you leave them there if you have any questions for us. And I do just want to give a shout out, Tim, to Eric and Chris. I don't think they got around to doing a podcast in April, but maybe we'll get one here in May. But if you guys want to write Eric and Chris, that's podcast@arcaderepairtips.com. And again, they do the question and answer podcast, which is an audio podcast that can be found on our website at arcaderepairtips.com. It can also be found on our iTunes page at itunes.arcaderepairtips.com and on our Stitcher radio page at stitcher.arcaderepairtips.com. Make sure you leave them a review if you like what you've heard. They would really appreciate it. And Tim, we have our social media sites. We have our Facebook page, which we've talked about a little bit tonight, and that's at facebook.arcaderepairtips.com. Big shout out to Louis for all the work that he does on the Facebook page. Between me and him, we try to post a lot of great information for you guys. So hopefully you've got some great stuff from our Facebook page. And if you don't have Facebook, but you still want that information, you can check it out on our Twitter feed at twitter.arcaderepairtips.com. Earlier in the show, Tim, we had somebody ask if we take questions there. Yes, we do. So send your questions there. You can tweet them at Arcade Repair. That's one way to send them to us. And we'll try to get back to you when we can. Well, Tim, I think we're going to sign off right there.
All right.
Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
There, quit while we're ahead.
That's right. Now, we will have the next live show, Tim, will be the first Thursday in June, right?
Maybe.
I'm
going to be on vacation June 5th through 9th.
Okay, maybe not.
Maybe the next week.
Unless
the first Thursday is before the 5th.
There you go. I'm not sure, Tim. You want to look it up real quick?
Yeah, maybe we'll look it up. I think it may be there on the 29th.
First Thursday's the 8th. Okay. No, the first Thursday's the 1st.
Oh, the 1st. The 1st I can do.
Okay, the 1st will technically be the first Thursday. So June 1st will be the next episode. That's what we'll do. The June episode, that'll be episode 4 that we'll be doing there. So you guys make sure you join us then. So June 1st?
Yes.
We're good. Not on vacation.
The next week, can't contact me.
Not even I can contact you.
Yeah, huh? I'm gonna be in a secure bunker somewhere.
That's right, underground, right?
Actually, a beach.
Oh, well, there you go. So, guys, thank you guys for joining us tonight in the live chat. If you're watching this after the live, after we're gone live with it, you're watching the recording, make sure that you leave us some comments. If you have any questions, comments about the show, we'd be glad to hear them about anything that we've discussed. And Tim, I think we'll sign off here.
Yep.
So guys, remember here at Arcade Repair Tips, when we fix the game,
we play the game.
Take care, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Arcade Repair Tips live show. All of our past episodes are available on our website at arcaderepairtips.com or on our YouTube page. This show is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please consult a professional before attempting to repair any coin-operated machines yourself. The preceding program is a Varcade Entertainment production.